I'm with Mike at the Microsoft Startup Showcase. What does your company do?
Sure. At Blue Medora, we're focused on IT performance monitoring, and we're separating out the data collection component from the data analytics piece in the IT monitoring space.
I have another question for you. If your company were an animal, what animal would that be?
If we were an animal, definitely a mountain lion. Yeah.
Why is that?
Because we are very aggressive, and we're resourceful.
All right.
So 15 years ago, there was a major shakeup in Major League Baseball. It's a story you may have heard before, but it involves the Oakland Athletics. It was the early 2000s, and they were really struggling. They had gone through a change in ownership, but more importantly, their budget was cut from down to about 1/3 of the budget of competitive Major League Baseball teams. So they were desperate to find a solution, to find a way to maintain their competitive abilities in a league with limited resources. So what they ended up doing, and just to give you some context, this is Major League Baseball in 2000 was still very traditional. They were focused on subjective analysis. A lot of times they were looking at gut instinct from a scout to select a team. What they did instead was go the opposite direction and take a very data-driven, analytical approach to building up a team. Now, it's probably no surprise to anyone in this room that if you take analytical approach to an industry that is very data averse, good things happen. And that was the case here. The Athletics won or went to the playoffs 3 years in a row. When this approach was taken to the Boston Red Sox, they won their first World Series in 90 years. So it's a very successful change to an industry. But my question, when I've read about this, when I learned about this, was why did it take so long? Because if you look at this guy, his name is Bill James, and he was the founder of the analytics revolution in baseball. And he started this 20 years earlier, in the late 70s. So none of this was new. He came up with the analytical approach. He had the theories behind it. He developed new statistics. And yet it took 20 more years for this to happen. The reason is he didn't have the data. The data wasn't available in a reliable, consistent way to teams and to others that were trying to change the game. It wasn't until Bill James created a new company that was called StatsInc. It was focused entirely on gathering the data and providing it to teams, providing it to vendors and media. That's when they finally were able to change the game of baseball. My name is Mike Kelly. I'm the CTO of Blue Medora. And at Blue Medora, we're focused on IT performance monitoring. Specifically, we are changing the environment. We're separating data collection, which is what we do, from data analytics, which is what our partners do. And the story I just told you resonates a lot with me in particular because this is very similar to what we see in the IT monitoring space. So if you imagine you are a large corporation, you have a large IT environment, you have many data analytics platforms that you're using to try and manage those, trying to understand the health of that environment. And we're seeing massive changes in those platforms. They're using machine learning. They're much, much better than they were several years ago at identifying anomalies and detecting performance issues inside of an environment. But the challenge is still, they only see a small amount of the data. They only see a small amount of the different technologies in a data center. So for example, you may have databases, you could have hardware, you could have business critical applications, look at cloud environments, all of those mixed together make up your IT environment. And at this point, they typically do a very poor job of getting all that data to your platforms. But at Blue Medora, we're changing that. Specifically with a SaaS platform called BindPlane. And this is expanding the aperture of IT analytics. Our platform, it's not an analytics platform, but it gathers over 100 integrations for different technologies, again, across database, across infrastructure like compute and storage and network, across cloud providers, pulls them all together into a single solution. It's best in industry in depth of data, not just the breadth. So what you saw before, we go far deeper into those different technologies. And not just that, but we add on a layer of relationships. And this is where it gets very interesting, especially for analytics. Let's say that you're running a database, a SQL Server database, and it's running on, maybe it's a virtual machine, inside of a data center. Maybe it's on compute and you have storage attached to it. Instead of showing those independently, we connect them all together and build a relationship map that shows you how all of those are tied together. And this is critical when you're trying to analyze the data and identify where cascading failures could be an issue. And last of all, since this is our entire focus, we're able to make this very simple to configure, simple to manage updates. So let me show you briefly how that works with a quick demo. This is our BindPlane SaaS service. In this example, it's an overview. It shows you 3 different data centers that we're monitoring, 2 cloud, 1 on-prem. Each of those has dozens of different technologies. And it's streaming data to 3 different analytics platforms. We've made it really easy to add any of those 100 plus integrations. You can do it in just a moment. You don't have to go to a server and configure it. And even better, you can add a new analytics platform. We're going to do that right here. We're going to add one more analytics platform. We're going to stream data to Microsoft OMS. With a few clicks, just a couple minutes, you'll see that this has been added. It shows up in the overview as a new analytics platform, and all the data that was configured is now getting sent to Microsoft OMS. Now we're jumping over to OMS. This isn't BindPlane, this is Microsoft product in Azure. And all of those metrics are now available to you in your preferred analytics platform on Microsoft. Whether that's Postgres, you can monitor Postgres. We have an example of Kubernetes, but not just that. Everything that I just showed you is all available now. So at Blue Medora, we're really trying to unlock the potential in IT monitoring by decoupling that data collection from data analytics. If this is something that's interesting to you, I'd love to chat with you after this talk. Meet me in the back, and thank you so much for your time.